Welcome back to The Fallen Fruit. Today is 9/9/2019, and I'm Catherine Urban, and I'm here with
Stephanie Janese.
Lynette Ramos.
And today we are talking about the terrifying and sacred blood.
Necessary blood, though. Like, literally can't live without it.
No, you can't. So we're talking about blood because on the last podcast, when we were talking about serpents and snakes, we were talking about, I forget what exactly we were talking about, but we were talking about something where we were like, ooh, blood. Let's talk about blood.
Yeah, so, like the serpent was known to be the origin of many religions, and it was really immersed in like a lot of the ancient culture, and it was symbolic of like death and rebirth, and it was feared, and there were all of these taboos around it. And so in our research with blood, we kind of found some of the same parallels. It is symbolic of death, obviously, and then rebirth and birth itself. And so we felt it was a natural progression to talk about blood.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we were talking a lot about DNA last time, and blood is a big conduit of DNA.
Oh, yeah. I mean, like, blood's our life energy for sure. It is the life force as it leaves us, the life force that enters us when we enter the world. We're just covered in it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's like our blueprint.
Yeah.
But it's interesting, though, because when you see the image of blood, like the natural instinct is to kind of recoil. Like it has that power. Like it's one of those things that most often is associated with injury and death, or like the threatening of life. But then as we know, as women, it's also a symbol of continuity
and fertility. Yeah. And like you said, that's what's so fascinating about it, because it's like, even when we start looking at some of the uses of blood and things like that, it's like, okay, it is feared. It is difficult to talk about, or it is taboo. And that's part of the reason why it has this magical elements to it, because it could be protective. It could ward off things according to, ancient texts and things like that. So it's like, okay, it's bad, but then it could be good depending upon how you're using it.
Yeah. Blood, like, it's associated with pain, obviously.
Yeah.
But it's also associated with like passion, because when you love to do something or you're like naturally good at it, they say, oh, it's in your blood.
Yeah, true.
It connects, all of that. And then when you think about ancestral magic too, like our blood is there's actually this quote that I found when I was looking up things about blood that I really, really loved. And it said, blood alone moves the wheels of history. And Martin Luther said that, in case anyone was wondering. But it's true. Like war, bloodshed, birth of nations, birth of, cultures, tribes, all of that. Like, it's something we definitely take for granted. It's symbolism and things like that, and we definitely don't honor it the way we should. I think especially as women or individuals who bleed every month, we're told like it's gross, it's nasty, it's painful, it's an inconvenience. But when we learn to work with it, I think there's like so much power there.
Yeah, and even when you see commercials for tampons and pads, like they have this very hygienic blue liquid that just like pours on it, and they're like, look at how absorbent it is and not gross.
It's like, is that window cleaner? What is that?
I never thought about it like that. Or wait, when they compare it to the ones that are not so good and it just kind of pours off, like it doesn't absorb.
Yeah, like blood doesn't do that.
Yeah. The blood's going to soak into literally whatever it touches.
Trust that.
It's going to get in there.
That's funny. They did talk a lot about that, like kind of like the Western society it doesn't embrace it. It is more like gross, though it obviously like is who we are. It's our life force, like you said. So yeah, it's a lot about culture, because some of the ancient cultures looked at it. Obviously, they had more reverence for it and more honor for it.
Right.
Totally. Yeah. But like, even like it's not just Western modern culture though. It's like everyone has a problem with periods. Like it's something that people have a hard time talking about. Even Amy Schumer did a really funny bit. Did you guys see that?
No,
I don't.
Her last comedy special is pretty funny. She's pregnant and she's like talking about being a woman and different things going on with her body, and she's talking about tampons and how like even as women we like get like a quiet voice like, do you have a tampon?
That's true. Or like, I was actually listening to a podcast. It was about, this is actually kind of funny in like podcast inception, but it was about students in different schools who were challenged to create a podcast around different issues, and they won. Like it was like a competition. It was through NPR, but the group that won were these young girls who were at a school. I'm not sure what school, but it was in the Bronx, and they did a podcast about periods and talking about how at school, if they needed to ask the teacher, they had to ask the teacher for something like a mint or a cookie, like they had code words for it and all that stuff. And yeah, when we don't normalize it, it's that's what makes it taboo. That's what makes it scary. That's what makes it, this like feared thing.
Yeah, because even when I think about myself, like going to like Walgreens and CVS and only having to buy one thing, and it's like I grab my box of tampons and kind of like look around, and then as I'm walking to the register, I'm thinking like, why am I feeling like this? Like it's so silly. Like I'm like, oh, I hope it's a girl cashier, you know what I mean? Like it's so silly. Like everyone knows like this is what we do every month, but it's still
right. Well, to like say something to that too, I use the cup, and so when I clean it after my cycle, I'll put it like on the sink, whatever. And my 10-year-old son comes into the bathroom and he's like, Mom, what's that? And I was like, it's my cup. So when I'm on my period, it catches the blood and then I dump it out. And he was like, oh, so that was like in you. I was like, yeah. And he was like,
and
okay.
You just got it out by my toothbrush.
Right. It wasn't on the toothbrush. It was on the other side of the sink. It was clean. I was letting it dry. But I also want to normalize it to them. Like they will be, either living with or in close encounters with women. So they should, also know what goes on with our bodies, and it just be part of what
normal.
It is. Yeah,
Normal.
This is what it is.
And whenever I buy tampons, because the cup doesn't work for me. I
wish
it
didn't work
did.
for me either. I was going to ask about that.
I really wish it did, because one, it's like good for the environment, and two, like it's great for collecting your blood.
Exactly.
Yeah. And it's cool. It's cool to look at. It has power. But anyways, I try to be extra when I purchase tampons, because I'll be there and I'm just like, you know what? I'm going to buy this cookie. I'm going to buy this bar of chocolate. Like, I'm going to let them know.
Like the period, like pack, you know what I mean? Like all the essentials.
You're like, I got warm compresses, face mask.
Some Aleve.
Yeah. That's crazy. Yeah. I wish the cup worked for me too. Because, even like I've never done any sort of ritual around blood. And I know that that's probably something that we can talk about here. Like a lot of the, again, the ancient stuff around that, the rituals and all of that. But like for me, it's like I actually wanted to kind of tap into that a little bit more and kind of see how that will impact my reality. Like how will I see tangible results using that? How will it impact me? And the cup would always like leak.
No.
It never, and I tried different ways. I tried different like positioning of it, different brands.
No, I mean, sometimes it definitely does leak a little bit.
Yeah.
But like, maybe just tossing on a panty liner can help. I just wear black underwear when I'm on my period.
That's
and
helpful.
like dark colored pants for the most part. Like I like those
just
commercials where it's like women in white, and it's like, don't fear wearing white on your period. And it's like, even if it was like locked up, there was a key, I was still probably not, I mean, I don't wear white really anyway, but.
Right. But just practically speaking, like you probably want to just like maybe not wear white.
Not a good idea.
No.
Not a good idea. You're just asking for trouble.
I don't wear white when I'm like going out to eat. So why, like I'm not going to wear white when I'm just like profusely bleeding out of my body.
So I want to talk about, there's like 3 initiations in a female's life. And in everyone's life, as we've talked about on earlier podcasts, like you can really divide up your life into 3 main phases. You know, you have like the youth, and then you have adulthood, and then you have elder. And for people who bleed, there are 3 main initiations that center really around blood. Mm-hmm. So the first is when you enter maidenhood, or whatever the equivalent may be. But you get your first period. Yeah. And in ancient cultures, there were celebrations around this.
Yeah.
And in today's world, I would have loved if my mom got me together with her friends and we like had a little party and they like told me all the neat things about being a woman. But like most other people, like you're just kind of like thrown a tampon and like told how to hide it or a pad.
Yeah.
But at that age, around the age of your first period, so I was 12 years old, or actually I was 11. I was kind of young. I was one of the first of my friends to get it. But around that age is when you start to open up in a new way. And astrologically, that's the time of your Jupiter return. So Jupiter is the planet, takes 12 years to go around. It has a lot to do with expansion and understanding and broadening your worldview. And it deals with spirituality. It deals with travel. So I think that that's a very interesting parallel, that you start to be able to expand spiritually at that age. You know, a lot of people start getting into tarot or astrology at that age, or connecting with spirits, or, you know, and I just think that that's super fascinating.
That's crazy, because I started at 11. Jupiter's my ruler. And I remember you know how like there's certain generations that you just don't talk about these things. So it's like my mom, like one day I went in my room and there was like this book about like masturbation and like, you know, so
That's
it's like
awesome.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Like for her, that was a big move, because like we didn't have a lot of conversation around it, but it caused me to explore myself. So I'm like, masturbation, like, what is this about? Because it's like we went from like the period to masturbation and all this stuff. So it's like she did it in her own way. It's like, okay, my parents didn't talk about this at all. Yeah. So for her, it's like she was giving me some information.
That's an initiation.
Yeah, on the low, right. But still doing it.
Like, were you taught like to cover up your pads or, you know, whatever? Was that like one of the things when you started? Because I know like, especially culturally, when you live with men in the house, it's like, oh, let me teach you how to like waste a whole yard of toilet paper, like rolling up your pad.
Actually, can I change my answer?
Yeah.
Yes.
See, that was like one of the, so it was like, oh, so it doesn't, you know, so the guys don't have to see it, so nobody, you know. And to me, I was always like, this seems like real wasteful, and like I get it, you know, but it's a big, like you could just roll it up on itself and then just put it. Like it doesn't, I don't know. To me, that was always like such this big orchestration and like waste of resources just to make somebody else feel like comfortable.
For sure.
And how do we know that they wouldn't be comfortable? Like I remember when I first got my period, I told my mom and I was like, do not tell Dad.
If you do nothing else.
Please don't tell my father.
But yeah, I mean, it's such an initiation, because at that time, like you maybe have started to learn about it in school before you get your first period, depending on your school and what people are telling you. But it's at that time, and especially getting a book on masturbation, that it's at that age where you really start to realize like there are secret codes in my body. Yeah. Like my body has magic.
Yeah. Yeah. I think for me, it was like, I ended up tying more shame to it because it was still hidden. It was still something that necessarily wasn't supposed to be talked about. And again, you know, even when we talk about like the introduction of the period, like imagine if the conversation would have been more like celebratory or explaining your power or your uniqueness or why this happens, instead of it being, more like a chore or like discomfort. And even though that's part of it, right, like the discomfort of it or whatever, so not necessarily like making it like super duper like not realistic, but I just don't think we got the full story. We just
We're only taught like the negative effects of it.
Yeah,
it's like, oh, now you know, now you got to be careful, now you're like really, you're sexualized, you're, womanized, and you're still a child. So I think as opposed to maybe learning the darker, more heavier sides of like the initiations of womanhood, at least for a 12-year-old, to kind of explain even astrologically, like, oh, you're having your Jupiter return, because I did start when I was 12 as well. But it's like you're expanding, you're opening, like you'll start to maybe feel more creative or things like that.
Yeah, at that age, that's when I got into astrology. And your body does expand too, because you start developing breasts, you start getting more voluptuous. Like these are like, Jupiter things expanding.
That makes sense.
But I really like the term, and Demetra George uses this in her book, The Mysteries of the Dark Moon, which we've talked about on the cast before. But she refers to it as the wise blood, and Jupiter deals with wisdom. And I just love that. Like that the blood, it's an initiation. It makes us wise, and it's like we've talked about before, like sometimes wisdom can have that dangerous side. So I understand why they want to scare us a little bit too. They want to protect us, but at the same time, like, why can't we hear the other part of the story?
Yeah. And even to me, like there were 2 times in a shamanic or plant medicine ceremony that I had my period at the time. And the one time I had to like hide it. Or actually, no, wait, I didn't hide it. They basically tied some tobacco around me to like protect the circle. 'Cause they say like, if you do any sort of ceremony and someone's on their period, it's almost like you're endangering the circle. And like, I felt like I didn't want to like go against the tradition. I didn't want to like question it, but it just didn't feel right to me. I thought, well, if we're supposed to be the most psychic and if we're supposed to be in our power, how did this turn into endangering other people? And I just wanted to understand that more. And so to me, even in indigenous ways and cultures and ceremony, there's still a taboo. There's still, in my opinion, a disrespect. And, I was even told that in a ceremony I had to leave, that if I continue to participate in the ceremony, I could block the shaman's vision. And I thought, how is it that I can block the shaman's vision and women are that powerful, but yet we're the helpers here? How,
right.
So there are even the cultures and the ways that I honor and I really respect, there's still to me an injustice and a disrespect to women, in my opinion. Totally. So there's a lot of, I don't know, for me, I'm still kind of struggling with how we're evolving, but not in some ways.
Yeah, and this isn't uncommon. I have a story from someone who I'd like to bring on as a guest at some point. Or, I would love to hear from some of our listeners if you grew up in another country or what have you. Like, do you have stories about the way that your menstrual cycle is perceived or womanhood is perceived where you were growing up? I would love to hear more stories like Lynette's.
Yeah. And, I just want to say one more thing about that. In the first ceremony that I was a part of, it was a San Pedro ceremony, which is the masculine energy. And do you know that even though the shamans and the helpers I felt obviously they have these rules, but the medicine was letting me know that it was okay. So I thought it was interesting that in a quote unquote masculine ceremony or that masculine energy, it was welcomed. My power was welcomed. And it wasn't shunned and it wasn't toned down. It was the humans there, not the energy. And so that to me gave me permission to say, okay, wait a minute, there's something here that I don't have to hold back or hide. And I actually ended up taking off the tobacco. I took it off because I felt like, no, I don't need that. I can be here. And if I'm being called by the medicine to do that, then yes, I honor their ways, but I have to honor me too. So it's tricky. Yeah. It's tricky because it's like, why is it that we're still being held back or shunned? I don't know. We still have some work to do.
Well, there is definitely a power, when you're having that flow, because with blood being like the life force and everything, it's flowing through you. And, The oracles of Delphi were consulted when they were on their period. They're considered more open. And this is true of other native groups of people too. They were consulted on what should we do in war? What should we do?
Yeah.
Like, can you divine this for us? And so going into the next phase of life, parenthood, like you are a portal. You're a portal. You are a portal of life.
Literally.
Literally.
Yeah, it's crazy. So like the blood, the period, like the regeneration and everything, it stops during that time. And then of course, in the initiation of childbirth, there's just blood everywhere.
Yeah. I mean, even
from what I hear.
Yeah. There's definitely some blood. I can attest.
A little bit.
It's a little bit gory. Beautiful. But at that time when it's happening, you're not like, ew, like blood, like get this, thing off of me. Blood is just like, oh, that's what's connecting you. And that is,
primal.
It's hereditary. It's your DNA heritage. It's all that good stuff. And like, when we think about blood too, like what determines our natural capabilities. So that's why it is, people are interested in learning about their bloodlines and about culture and what connects us to where and how are we connected to this place and time and beings. And blood like is that. It tells you that story. It's crazy how it can tell you, these DNA tests, like I get it. We're sending our DNA to the government or these like third party agencies and they're going to just make copies of us and whatever. But the fact that there is some truth to it, because how did it know that 49% of my blood came from this very specific town in Italy? And like, that's exactly where my dad's from. They've never been from anywhere else,
How did it know that you have serpent DNA?
How did it know that I had serpent DNA? Right. But it's this creative life force. It's a fluid. Like our body fluids create life. Blood is like the manifestation of all of that. And, when you do anything, it's like put your blood, sweat, and tears in it. Sometimes you're, jizz too, I guess. But, whatever the creation calls for.
Yeah, it's funny. Like even us three here, like we know that even us coming to do this podcast has brought in like different synchronicities with like being pulled in certain directions with topics and things like that. And even like in my research, it talked about how Lilith was, according to ancient texts, the first woman to consume blood. And I thought, isn't that interesting that, we kind of started around Lilith and the dark goddess. And again, here we are again. And I read that they don't have a lot of information about why or how, but supposedly the snake was known to have started menstruation. So again, like, what is this about? Because even in the research with menstruation and blood ritual, the snake was there.
Yeah, I did.
But there wasn't a lot of explanation on why.
Well, I mean, the period, it's a regeneration. It was seen to cleanse spiritually. Like you get your emotions out, you get your feelings out. It's supposed to be renewal. And so
shedding,
snakes shed.
That makes sense. Yeah.
So there's that symbol, but I wonder if there's more.
Yeah. And even when I spoke with the shaman about this issue that I was having between like the male and the female, and he talked about how women are naturally able to shed and regenerate themselves, and men don't have that natural. I mean, obviously they go through their own cycles, but physically we go through it. Mm-hmm. So we're embodying this natural cycle within ourselves. And so it's almost like he wanted to like tell me like, you're right.
But like without saying
you're right. We love y'all, but we still running shit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that was interesting. He did it with love. Like I didn't feel any sort of like toxic masculinity, but it was still like I wanted more. Like, I want you to tell me more. Like, why are we here now?
I wonder too what the, like for men, if there's any regenerative power in like sexual intercourse with someone when they're bleeding.
Well, I'm sure
period sex, like
yeah.
I'm sure just releasing in general for them is kind of like cleansing, suppose.
Yeah.
Like they always feel better afterwards.
they feel something. Tired usually. It's like, whew, it took a lot out of me.
Craving sandwiches.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Usually I want like ice cream afterward.
Oh, really?
So I'm glad you brought up Lilith because I found something weird in my research. So I found that the Mesopotamian mother goddess Ninhursag was said to make people out of her blood of life.
Okay.
And mix it with dirt. Okay.
Ooh.
Sound familiar? Genesis. And she supposedly taught women how to make conception dolls in the same manner. So taking their menstrual blood, mixing it with dirt, and making some kind of figurine. So according to some translations of Genesis, Adam was made in the same way.
See, I knew he never came from his damn rib. He came from our blood.
Right. Or we weren't just like made from dirt alone. It was dirt and the wise blood, the sacred blood.
Yeah. It's funny. Like I read, here it is. In Germany, it was believed up to the 8th century that if one planted in the soil a hair from the head of a menstruating woman, it would be converted into a snake.
I read that too. That's so cool.
That's again, like,
See what happens.
let me know what happens.
Yeah, like send me that. I got a little ritual I gotta do.
Yeah,
in the next few days.
Yeah.
It was interesting. Oh, and here it is. I looked up, there was this one website that had like different uses for period blood. And some of them were, first of all,
Do go on.
Yeah, continue.
like add lacquer and use as a nail polish.
Whoa.
Add Vaseline and use as lipstick.
Oh, okay.
Feed your plants. I'm into it.
Yeah, for sure.
There were some ones that were kind of funny. Let's see. Put
That
some on your
lipstick one.
Yeah.
Like, and then kiss somebody and be like, haha, motherfucker.
This one says, put some on your hand before high-fiving someone. Let's see. Freeze into ice cubes. I'm not sure how you want to handle that, but
And then put them in water?
bring to uncomfortable events as an escape plan. Not sure.
There you go.
Spill it on the floor like, oh, gotta go.
Send as a gift to a formal middle school bully. Send a gift to an ex-lover. So anyway, put it inside of a pastry. Like, there were all these weird things that I'm just like, put it in lasagna.
Well, okay, so I'm trying to figure out the why behind that.
Yeah.
And so in some of my research, I've learned that, blood is one of the most powerful ingredients you can use in a spell.
Yeah.
And so there's a little bit of an ethical issue here.
Right.
But there is also, like, I guess it's been historically used in certain cultures as, like, to attract someone. So if you feed someone, like, put it in their coffee.
Yeah.
A little bit of your blood, then it's
Or
like
spaghetti.
Yeah.
yeah, they said something with iron in it, like meat or whatever. Then that person would be really attracted to you.
Yeah.
But there's ethics around that too, right?
Yeah, like don't consume other people's blood.
There's that, and also the ethics of magic. Like, do you want to do a love spell on someone that, like, you maybe shouldn't be bound to?
That's true.
Yeah,
just because in the moment you want,
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's like, I even heard it's almost like you're not creating this attraction, you're creating like this enslavement.
Yes, I read that too.
Yeah. Because blood is thicker than, what's the saying?
Water?
Yes.
You're like, what's that other fluid?
Yeah.
That other fluid.
Yeah, I agree. There is ethics to it because it's almost like using it for your own attraction. So to me, it's like if you want to bring in love, use it to bring in the proper love without attaching a person to it, I think.
Yeah.
So it's like you can use it for attraction because it obviously is powerful or for protection, but I don't think you should use it for a specific person. And even like, I know someone who would do rituals with their partner and they would mix their semen and their blood together.
That makes sense.
But they just made it. So,
Oh.
I mean, again, there's so many layers to
I'm trying to bleed on a Pulitzer Prize. Let me attract that into my life. I am not wasting my precious blood, no offense, on someone's undeserving son or daughter.
So yeah, I mean, I guess blood is supposed to be used for like the most powerful things. Like if you really want to charge something up. So again, this is going to be different for everyone's preferences and where you're at and what your beliefs around magic are. But I guess the blood should only be used in really extreme cases.
Yeah.
And also when you want to, so when we think about our cycles being attuned to the moon, and there's that, waxing, waning, the push pull of the tides, you want to be able to use it in order to kind of like attract things to you, to pull them to you. And so it's also really good for like releasing things too, because when you think about the action of gravity and the blood coming down, so it's good for like a very powerful wanting to release. But if you want to attract that Pulitzer Prize,
yeah, let me just print out like a picture of it, or
yeah, let us know how it goes.
Yeah, and then I'm gonna bury my hair, and there's gonna be a snake. Just you guys fight.
I want to be there for the unveiling of it.
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, and even in some of the spells or the rituals, it's like they said, like, you don't even need a lot of it. It could be, like if let's say you're going to put it in your plants. They said if you put a ton of it, you're going to, all the bacteria, and it could start to smell. Like, again, it's like you have to do things, you don't have to go overboard with things. And like you said, it has to be something, or it should be something that is really important. It shouldn't be used frivolously, because it is so potent.
Yeah, because I mean, like we mentioned it, like Stephanie mentioned at the beginning, like blood is just, it connects you. It's your lineage. Like that shit is so powerful.
Yeah.
So it shouldn't be using.
Yeah, like I was actually listening to a podcast too. This writer was talking about, she travels, touring, and about with her cup, she was like, I've dumped it in like rivers in like Arizona, or she was like, I think I dumped it in the Grand Canyon,
Awesome.
and almost like it's like a Horcrux, because now you are connected to those places.
That is awesome.
So right now I'm connected to like Lake Erie, because I think that's where all my blood's been going. Just down the drain.
Yeah, but yeah, I think I want to get more into the ritual aspect of it. I'm not at this point interested in consuming it. For me, that's a little bit much, but I am interested in kind of playing with it more. Especially since I'm 42, so I don't even know. Like that's one thing, even in this research, and even several months ago when I started really understanding like the blood ritual or learning about it more, I almost felt cheated a little bit, because I'm like, wow, like all of these years I've been in contact with this power that I really didn't tap into and didn't honor.
Yeah.
And so now I'm at this point in my life where I don't know much longer I'll have it. So it's almost like I feel really inclined to really kind of go into it kind of hard and kind of see. And even people, in menopause or after when they're not menstruating anymore, there are other ways you can use your bodily fluids. There are other ways to do it. So it's almost like, it's interesting that even after menstruating, women are supposed to be kind of in their real power, like that crone energy. So it's interesting that they're not menstruating, but they're supposed to be at this powerful point in their lives.
So the saying is, to get to our third phase, is that at that time in life you retain it.
Yes.
You retain your wise blood.
Yes.
Yeah.
I like it.
You ain't giving it away no more.
Fuck yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that.
But I feel what you're saying though, because even though I'm 32, I have thought about that. Like there will be a day where I don't have this, and it's usually in those moments where I am on the toilet, having that moment with myself, and I'm just like looking at my blood, and I'm like, this is so precious.
Yeah.
How much longer will I get to have this? And the reason I now have that relationship with my blood is because for so many years I was on the pill. And it changes. Everyone's body is different, but I felt very disconnected from my cycle for a long time. There was a number of years where I wasn't even getting it because of a lot of environmental stresses and things, health conditions, things I had going on. But you know, in the last 2 years, I went off the pill 2 years ago, and in these last 2 years, it's taken my body to really adjust, and I have welcomed the PMS. I have welcomed the cramps. I have welcomed it because it is my body's natural rhythm, and I was mourning the fact that, like, I pushed that natural piece of me, that very intimate spiritual connection away from me for so long.
Yeah. And same thing with me. Like, I had an IUD for like 5.5 years. And before that, same thing. When I was pregnant a lot of the time, or breastfeeding, and you don't really get your period then. But yeah, and I felt the same way. Like, when I finally got it, and I think I got up off the chair in the OBGYN office, and there were like the first few drops of blood just spilled on the floor, I was like, oh, it's back.
Yes.
And I do. I feel like now I like track it. I use one of those fertility apps, but not because I'm trying to get pregnant, because I'm not trying to get pregnant.
Just like put that out. Like,
yeah. Like, look, let's see. This week I'm fertile. Cool. Yeah. Like, what's my score? Am I a 10? Maybe keep your dick away from me. If, you know, I'm at a 1, let's go for it. But, you know, trying to track it that way. I have a friend that swears by that app, just tracks it. And it's been working, but I'm not saying that works for everybody. So don't take health advice from us.
Do what works for you.
Yeah. But I think, being off of the birth control, I think it sucks because at the same time now, you know.
Things can happen.
Things can happen. But I also am not trying to get back on it just to like appease, I don't know, whatever.
Right. Like, men can do their part too and control themselves.
They could.
Yeah. So I posted a picture on our Instagram today as we got ready to record, and it was a picture of, I saw that someone posted it on Facebook, and I was just laughing my ass off. So thank you, Samantha Phillips, because you shared that. It was a dude watching TV, and it's like all this blood and gore, and he's just eating popcorn and just chilling. And then the bottom picture is a picture of a bloody pad, and he's just like, ah!
Yeah, I'm just looking at that now.
Yeah.
What a douche.
Right. I mean, I definitely, when I would work, you know, I worked at a restaurant, so obviously lots of male and female energy there. But anytime the girls would be, you know, talking about our periods or any of that stuff, the guys would always be like, walking away from this conversation. And I was like, you got here because a woman had her period. Like, your dumb, ungrateful ass is here because of this very act. So, why don't you just shut the fuck up and be grateful?
On that note, I had a guy one time tell me that he doesn't like to eat pussy. And I was like, you need to worship the pussy. Like, you came from one.
Like that.
We didn't hang out again.
No. Well, it's like, if that's cool, well, guess what? All of a sudden, I don't like sucking dick no more. But somebody else is gonna. I mean, if you're gonna be intimate with somebody, be intimate. If you want to go there, go there.
That boggles my mind.
Listen.
Like, seriously.
I can see, like, you know, maybe certain people. Maybe it's like, not like some one night stand of some, you know, whatever chick I just met and I don't know. But if it's like somebody that you're choosing to be intimate with.
Right.
Be fucking intimate.
I remember this one Facebook, it was like a post about oral sex, and this one girl posted like, eating pussy is like potato salad. You can't eat everybody's, right?
That's true though.
It makes me think like, hey, I get it. But I'm just saying, for people to make like blanket statements like, I don't eat pussy, like I would never even be involved with someone.
Right.
No.
It's like, I have. What's wrong with you?
No. It's like, keep living your sterile life over there.
Listen, there's a lot of joy and pleasure in our bodies and exploring every part of our bodies. At least try something once.
Right.
That's so whack to me.
That is real.
You have not been initiated.
You have not been initiated.
Your growth is very stunted.
Listen, it is 2019. Like, get over
Like,
this.
come over here.
Yeah.
Let me sit on
Like,
your face.
people are already
You know what
moved
I
on.
mean?
Like, people are eating ass now. Like, I mean, they have been, but all of a sudden now it's in like songs and stuff. You're
Yeah.
like,
Oh,
oh,
the
okay.
cast just took a different turn.
How did we get off the topic of blood? Like, so bad.
People eating ass now.
I had a friend ask me that. She's like, is that what people are doing? I was like, people been doing that. And I was like, where are you?
I'm a virgin to that. I'm not gonna lie.
I'm just saying. It feels good.
Wait, I'm just talking about giving. I ain't
Okay. Yeah.
Moving right along.
Let's get back on topic. Back to blood. We'll talk about oral sex.
Let's talk about the
We got
ancient origin.
we're talking about we're getting our blood pumping. Right
We
now.
are getting our
It's
blood
kinda
pumping.
warm.
Yeah, it's hot. I see your cheeks are flushed.
So the main one of the main ingredients in blood is hemoglobin. I love that word. I have loved that word since I learned it, like in school. Hemoglobin.
Yeah.
And that is like the part I think that has like iron in it, and it's what makes you like magnetic. Like the blood running through you, the iron, you know, that's what like gives us that magnetic charge. And you know, our nervous system in Kundalini yoga, we talk about how our nervous system really charges up our aura, but I think it's also our blood. You know,
That
like
makes sense.
at least like on the physical, the corporal level of what makes us magnetic. Like that's the blood pumping through our body.
You're making me think like how I want to like maybe even have conversations with my nieces, because when you think about that, like understanding your magnetism or your power, and it's like we want to like usher in this new wave of women, right? Like we're all about evolving ourselves as like passing that on. Like I don't have a daughter, so it's like how can I pass that on? Like wouldn't it be dope as my nieces grow up? Like I have 3 of them. If they can grow up kind of being more in touch with that, their magnetism, their charm, their uniqueness, their beauty, like where could they be?
Right. If I'd figured this out
Right.
when I was a teenager, listen.
Yeah.
I would have already had that Pulitzer Prize.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what's up. Yeah. No, for sure. I don't know. I was thinking about the other day. This is kind of off topic, but that's the theme of today. Today's a
Yeah, you can't get more off topic than like eating ass on the blood episode. So go for it, Catherine.
Today is a void moon, so we're just going with the flow. But yeah, I mean, it's true. I mean, getting your period and everything, that's when we really start being insecure as women too. But that's not a biological issue, that is a cultural issue.
Yeah.
And so, as a lot of people know, I also cut hair. And something I think about a lot is how men who start to bald, like, that's when they get insecure. And I feel bad and everything, but at the same time, I'm like, it's your turn to feel what we have felt
Yeah.
our whole lives.
It's like good for you.
Yeah.
For you.
Like, I feel bad, but then, like, I guess the Scorpio part of me is kind of like, and you know,
so
I'll,
insensitive of you.
like, I'll still try to help them and everything,
No, I
but
know
part
that.
of me is gets a little bit of satisfaction, admittedly, out of like, okay, this is the first time in your life you felt some insecure,
Yeah.
probably, like in that way, like about your body. So,
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, men definitely have their insecurity, things. I'm sure it's like you have this appendage that people are judging you on
Yeah.
that just lives outside of your body.
That's true.
Like,
Yeah.
and in other ways too. I think I'm a little more empathetic, maybe because I do have sons.
Yeah.
And so realizing, like, the little ways you, as their mother, like, you're gonna notice their insecurities. You're gonna probably be the only person in the world who might actually know what those insecurities are. But
Yeah.
That's true.
yeah.
But
I
it
mean,
doesn't mean that they
that's
shouldn't.
true.
Not necessarily shouldn't. It is just a part of it, right?
Yeah.
It's like with my son, I can obviously think of times where I'm just like, no, like you needed to go through that. Like I'm okay with you stumbling around. I'm okay with you because you need that. So it's
Yeah.
kind of it's like we all have our thing. But I do agree that having a son definitely is like. I think that a lot of us, based on the current climate, we can be angry, right? And we can
Yeah.
become resentful. But I think if you have a son or a husband or spouse, someone that you're super connected with, you do soften because you do see the other side of it.
Yeah.
And I would just like to see us like my sister always says, "Oh, you have this view because you have a son, but would you have that same view if you had daughters?"
Yeah.
Like with certain freedoms and certain things like that. So I think if we raised our daughters a little bit more like we raised our sons,
Yes.
we'd probably be in a more balanced place.
Yeah.
Because like I love my son's a scored double cap, and I love that he's an asshole. I love that he's intense. I love that he's not intimidated easily. Like I love that about him. Like he teaches me, and it's like, would I encourage that with a daughter?
Yeah.
Would I want to soften her? I don't think so, but
when I was in high school, a guy told me, and he was my friend and everything, but he was like, "I don't trust something that bleeds for 5 days and doesn't die."
that is a thing.
But like to the ancients, like that was like, you got powers.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I think that's why women are so intuition is our superpower in the same way that like judgment is the masculine superpower. And people, it's been coming up a lot in like tarot readings, this like thing of judgment, and everybody kind of gets like, you know, a little freaked out about it, or it just has a negative connotation. But like judgment keeps us safe the same way like intuition guides us to make choices that, you know, resonate with our higher self.
I love that.
I love that too. Like that judgment feels like discernment.
Yeah, that's what I've been saying. I was like, judgment is discernment. Like, you know, dark alleyway. Maybe I'm not gonna walk down it.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you just have to. Then your intuition will tell you, but there could be a carnival on the other side.
Yeah.
It's interesting too that we live in a time where we're being empowered to embrace our masculine and our feminine, no matter who you are and how you identify. And I know that like it's a journey to learn to trust both your intuition and to have the strength to just judge something.
Yeah.
And trust in yourself to make the right call.
Yeah, being your own judge and like, this is for me. Yes, this is not for me. You know, death sentence.
And that's where, like you guys said, we can learn from our male counterparts. I learned a ton from my son, and I try to teach him the other ways. Like I want him to be strong and discerning and judgmental in that sense, but also have the intuition.
Right.
Also have the compassion. Like you don't need to be an asshole in all situations. Like if you love someone, obviously you need to soften.
Yeah.
But we need to know when to do what.
That's the thing I've been talking about. It's like both parts live within you. Like sometimes the masculine archetype is going to take the driver's seat.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's going to be the feminine, and that's within men, women, and everywhere in between.
Yeah.
Just they both live within you. Let them come out when their strengths need to be played. That's how we can elevate to our higher self. Like that's when we're, you know, men do need to be more vulnerable, need to use their fucking words. And women need to sometimes be a little bit more reserved and sometimes be a little bit more cold. But it just depends, you know, where you're at. Let that energy, let that archetype take drive of the situation whenever you feel like that strength is, you know, needed.
And I think that, like, you made me think about, like, even for people who want to do some sort of blood ritual or even just rituals in general, it's like, if we can connect with these archetypes or energies of like for example, Kali was also known to you know, devour beings. So we're talking about blood again. It's like if we can start to learn from these goddesses, I think they embody the masculine and feminine perfectly, because they would be like it's like the life-giving energy, but also the like, I'll take you out energy too.
Oh, for sure.
Like
that's how I try to walk every day. Like I'm soft, I am like water, you know, I'm very feminine, but at the same time, like I will cut you. Make no mistake.
I will ritual.
I will do a blood ritual. I will burn this fucking city down.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I can water it and watch it grow.
Yeah.
And so just like trying to embody those two things, how do you do that harmoniously?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, you guys.
Have we gone like far into...
Let's wrap this up. Might be having a technical difficulty. So yeah, that concludes our discussion on blood, etc. So anyone have any events that coming up that you want to share?
No events for me.
Okay.
I'll just be at Coven every weekend, 3 to 8. Come see me, get a tarot reading.
Woohoo! Woohoo! I am I'm teaching about cusps and what they are and what they are not. And that will be at Coven on Wednesday, September 25th at 7 p.m.
Yes.
Yeah. So you can connect with us on Instagram at the Fallen Fruit Podcast. And please leave us some comments. We'd love to hear from you if there's any topics you want to hear about or anything you want to share about your experience with blood. Please let us know.
Yeah, I know a few women that are really into this and have practiced for a while. So I'm interested in hearing back from some of those women and maybe sharing some tips or some of their knowledge. That'd be awesome.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for hanging out with us in the treehouse today, and we'll catch you next time.
Have a bloody good day.
Thanks.